Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to part 1 of our 2022 Halloween special. So for those who didn't see the video announcing this, our Halloween special this year is basically bigger is better. We are going to be looking at movies each week of this October, going over things that are either from major franchises or are just really big movies within the horror genre or its subsequent subgenres. So basically pretty big films. And we're starting this off with a movie that came out back in January, I believe. Scream. This is Scream 5. It is the 2022 one. It is, from what I know, not a reboot. Some people think it's a reboot for some reason, and to my knowledge, it's not. It's just a continuation. It even features characters from the original movies and all, such as David Arquette as Dewey and so on and so forth. But it also includes a new cast joining in as well, including, oh God, what is his name? Jack Quaid, that's it. Including Jack Quaid from The Boys. He was also apparently in Hunger Games, I found out semi-recently. Apparently he was the guy in the Hunger Games who killed Rue. And it's like, I went back and looked at it, it's like, oh yeah, that is him. Oh, okay. It was a very minor role, all things considered. He had a major impact, but the role itself, it's like he didn't really do or say much. Oh, sorry. Wow, I just knocked that completely off center. But yeah, so he's in this. I don't know who else is in this outside of, like, you know, returning cast members and all. So I guess we'll just have to find out. I also don't really know, like, any specifics about the plot. The Scream franchise in general has sort of been a semi-satire on horror tropes. It uses... It's a legitimate slasher horror series, but at the same time, it does use its runtime to also make fun of the tropes. You had Jamie Kennedy in the beginning and everything, and he would constantly be talking about, like, oh, if this were a horror movie, it's like, you don't do this, you don't do that, and then with, like, Scream 2, it's like, okay, this is a horror sequel now, and they would constantly make fun of those ideas, those tropes, and everything, in a very clever way. Like, it's definitely satire, but not done entirely as satire, because it's still trying to be taken seriously as a horror film, as a slasher film. And one of the biggest draws of the Scream series is trying to figure out who done it, because there is that mystery aspect as well as to who is Ghostface this time. And sometimes it's a lot harder to figure out, because there's been at least, I think 2 of the movies prior were just, like, completely kind of out of nowhere with who it ended up being. Like, in one of them, it ended up being, like, there were, like, multiple ones, but one of them was the mother of one of the boys from the first movie. Because there were 2 in the first movie as well. And it was one of their mothers, and it was like, it just felt like that one was like, okay, you could see it after it happens, but you would never have guessed it beforehand. Um, but like with the first movie, both of the killers were easy to guess. If you actually pay attention in the movie, both of them are very easy to guess. And it's actually pretty easy to guess that there's two of them. Because it's very easy to guess, okay, this one person has to be it. But then it's like, okay, Ghostface appears when he's around. So it's like, but no, it has to be him. So there must be two. If you actually pay attention, it's like, yeah, no, he has to be Ghostface. It being disproven that it's him actually just doesn't add up. um, but if it's your first viewing, it can throw you off when he's sort of disproven. So it actually does do its job in that regard. But on multiple rewatches, it's like, oh no, it couldn't. He has to be it. Like, there's no way he's not. um. So yeah, obviously, I don't know the spoilers with this one. I don't know who Ghostface is going to end up being. I really don't know much about this. I haven't heard people talk about it for, I guess, better or worse. But I have heard just generally that it does have mixed reviews. So, I mean, that's a thing. Now, obviously, as I've stated on the channel before, I always tend to judge things based on my experience, which is why there's been movies that have been critically panned and stuff that I like, and movies that have been critically praised that I don't like. It just, my opinions, my tastes are different, just like everybody's are. Um, and I'm going to judge films solely based on my experience, not based on what other people say. Too many people do that already. I'm going to base this on my experience entirely. And I like this franchise. Yes, I even like Scream 3 and 4. Like, I think both of them are still good. They're not the best, and they're definitely the weaker ones in the series, but I still like them. Deal with it. I don't think any movie in this series is terrible. I would not even call even a single one bad. Um, Now the show, on the other hand, the first season is good. The second season just kind of loses its way. It just becomes stupid. And then I think there's a third season that has barely anything to do with the characters from the first two or something. I don't know. I'm not super invested. Um, yeah, again, the first season of the show was good, and I kind of wish they just stopped there. Just had it been a limited thing, but they didn't. And season two just was not great. Um, either way, we're gonna get into this. Hope for the best, and yeah, in the afterthoughts, we will talk about it, and at the end, I'll tell you what's coming up next week for the second week of the Halloween special. So, either way, let us get this started. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I didn't really talk about this a lot in the pre-thoughts, but I'll just mention it here. Though I think I've talked about it in the past and everything, so a lot of you might know. Scream is one of my favorite horror movie franchises. The first Scream itself specifically is without question one of my favorite horror movies, period. Like right up there with the likes of Train to Busan. It's that good in my opinion. The way it plays with the tropes of slasher films the self-awareness, the satirical nature, but also the fact that it does still take itself seriously. The twist that there's two villains at the end. It's like it's a classic. And it's fucking Wes Craven. And speaking of such, just real quick, a little intermission. I understood during the party the entire toast for Wes. Wes Craven passed away in 2015. He's the visionary behind Scream, but also behind the likes of Nightmare on Elm Street and whatnot. One of the most prolific, well-respected horror names out there, just period. And so it's like, yeah, with the kid named Wes, it's like I didn't get that at first. I did not get that his name was a reference and a homage to Wes Craven. I didn't get that at first until the four Wes parts at the party. Like at that moment, it clicked with me because I knew Wes Craven had passed away. I knew that obviously he didn't work on this film. So that was a nice touch. And at the end, even adding that again at the beginning of the credits and all I feel it was a good choice to have that in there. Because again, this franchise started with Wes. It was his story. It was his horror, his satire on the slasher genre. And so with it being, to my knowledge, the first Scream, not counting the show, after his passing, because again, I think the last one was in 2011, like they said in the film. But with it being the first movie after his passing, it's like, yeah, they have to give that mention in the credits to him for sure. Even though it had been years since his passing, they still had to. And with this film being a requel and, focusing so heavily on the legacy of this series, and especially on the legacy characters, it's like I feel this was a very fitting nod to Wes Craven. So there is that. But before we get into just my thoughts on everything else, I do want to talk about two of the actors here. So Jenna Ortega was the one I said, this name actually does sound familiar. And so I'm looking up, apparently, she's in Elena of Avalor, which I haven't seen. But what I have seen is The Babysitter Killer Queen, the second Babysitter movie on Netflix, and she was in that. Also, apparently, she's also in the Foo Fighters horror film, Studio 666. I haven't seen that yet, but I've been kind of wanting to. Just because it's Foo Fighters doing a horror film. That sounds fucking hilarious. But there's something that's coming up that's it. I'm trying to remember. It's like, what did I know her for? I scrolled down and I literally saw it right away. Wednesday. She's going to be Wednesday Addams in the Addams Family Wednesday series on Netflix. It's like I knew that name from somewhere. It's like I just couldn't place it. I couldn't place where I knew the name from. But I knew it from somewhere. And that is definitely it. And apparently, according to this, she is going to be in the next Scream movie, too. So they are continuing with the Carpenters for that. She was also in Insidious Chapter 2, but I only saw the first Insidious movie. And apparently she was in Iron Man 3 as the Vice President's daughter. A bit role, mind you, but that was apparently her film debut. Though she had been in television in a couple things before that. I also wanted to look up Jasmine Savoy Brown, who was Mindy. She's the character of Finn Mason in the video game Spider-Man Miles Morales, so that's fun. Um, but I'm not seeing. Apparently, she's going to be in the next Scream film as well, so that's cool. Apparently, she was in an episode of Final Space and has a main role in this series I've vaguely heard of called Yellow Jackets. But otherwise, I'm not really seeing much of anything I would know her for. Spider-Man Miles Morales is the big thing with her as Finn Mason. And also, the character or the actress herself, Jasmine Savoy Brown, is also a lesbian. She is also queer. So they got an actual queer actress to play a queer character, and I love that. Because sometimes they don't do that. But I like that they actually did. I really do. And again, I really like that she survived in the end. But let's get to what I really want to talk about here. You know how in the first Scream movie they say that Stu, Matthew Lillard's character, is kind of the true star of that film? Because it's just, he stands out so much, he's so entertaining, and he just steals the show every scene he's in. For me, at least, that would without question be Jack Quaid in this film. Every scene he's in, Jack Quaid is absolutely stealing the show. And especially once it's revealed that he is one of the two killers. Once that's revealed, like, he does just really nail the deranged, like, overzealous fan who has gone psychotic and become a murderer. He just nails the performance. And again, I've known Jack Quaid's a good actor because I watch The Boys and everything. But I just wasn't expecting the heel turn, I guess you could say. For those who don't know wrestling terminology, a heel turn is when someone's revealed to be a bad guy or someone becomes a bad guy suddenly, kind of out of nowhere. Basically in wrestling, it's used when a character who's seen as a good guy ends up turning and becoming a bad guy, like during a segment or a match or something. But yeah, I didn't expect that. Because again, as I said in the reaction, I suspected him earlier on, but I stopped suspecting him. Amber I was sure on Amber. Like, she was the most suspicious to me. So I'm glad I was right on her, but he did catch me off guard. So I got one of the killers. I admittedly was starting to suspect Tara a little bit, as I said in the reaction. It was kind of a crack theory. I was kind of thinking that maybe that was the entire thing. Maybe that's the entire reason she survived the opening attack, because she was actually one of the killers, and this was just done to make it seem like she was, or at least that she was in on it, even if she wasn't actively doing it herself. Like, she was in on it to some degree. But really thinking about it, it doesn't really make sense. I don't really think it would work. But it did kind of get implanted in my brain a little bit. There was that thought. And I do like how at the end Jack Quaid's character, Richie, was saying, Dewey kind of nailed it. Always suspect the love interest. And it's like, yeah, he did. That was actually when I started suspecting him. But again, as the movie continued along after that, I stopped suspecting him. Okay, so I want to look up real quick before I share any of my further thoughts. I want to look up what people thought of this film. I'm just going to go on the Wikipedia article and just look it up based on the critic reviews it shows here. Okay, so Rotten Tomatoes, as I've stated in past videos, Rotten Tomatoes, like, form your own opinions. Don't listen to them. If you agree with them, cool. But if you don't worry about it. If you like a movie that Rotten Tomatoes hates, don't worry about it. It's usually critics, and usually critics can't be trusted because they go into movies already expecting certain things, and they have a very skewed perception when they view movies. It's part of their job. It is. It just is. I'm not saying that they're wrong for doing that, but it is. Anyways, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 76. Okay. Of 286 reviews. Okay, so 76% of those 286 reviews are positive. Okay. Average rating of 6.6 out of 10. The consensus reads, the fifth Scream finds the franchise working harder than ever to maintain its meta edge, and succeeding surprisingly often. Metacritic gave it a 60 out of 100, so basically about the same score. Based on 49 critics only there, though. Cinema Score gave it B+ on an A+ to F scale. Okay, let's listen to some actual reviews. Aiden Jouvet, I may be mispronouncing that, I apologize if I am, of Screen Rant, called the entry an excellent modern slasher, and wrote, though the franchise has always been a distinguished property with pure perfection, the recent return to Scream raises the bar for aspiring slashers, once again setting a standard for modern horror, just as it did 25 years ago. Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune wrote, if we were to make a franchise reboot comparison, Scream lands about halfway between the pretty good 2018 Halloween and the turgid follow-up Halloween Kills, which we will be reacting to later this month. So, Peter Bradshaw, The Guardian, gave the film 3 out of 5 stars, writing, but it's still capable of delivering some piercing high-pitched decibels. And it seems like most of these are in that kind of vein. However, Jeanette Katsoulis for the New York Times did give the film a negative review, criticizing the fan service. She stated, wearingly repetitive and entirely fright-free, Scream teaches us mainly that planting Easter eggs is no substitute for seeding ideas. The performances of the cast were particularly praised. Campbell was acclaimed for her performance, noting her fresh take on the role. Yeah, everything it says here is just about Neve Campbell. Which, I mean, fair, she did great. But still, why would you not praise Jack Quaid there? Like, praise Jack Quaid. Praise the shit out of Jack Quaid. So it seems like most people did like this, with at least one person here saying otherwise. Saying that it was just too focused on the fan service and the Easter eggs and, you know, focusing on the past and all. But that was kind of the point. So let me state my opinion on this. This was the best Scream film since the first. It's not as good as the first. I will state that. I feel maybe there's a few, like maybe 2 or 3 too many characters. Like, maybe take out like a couple of the kids, and it would have been a lot better, because I feel like some of the characters were just there just to die. Mindy's brother, for example, he didn't really add much to the film. He was just kind of, he was kind of a skeptic and everything, and he was questioning others and all, but he didn't really add much, and easily his role could have been played by anyone else. The girl he was kind of with as well, she really didn't add much to anything. And honestly, as much as obviously he was in name a reference and a homage to Wes Craven, the character of Wes, I just really didn't find anything interesting there. He was just basically the overly precautious, overly safe one because his mother was like that as well. His mother was fine. Like, her role I didn't have an issue with. She could have stayed in and served the same purpose, but Wes I don't think needed to. So those 3 I think could have maybe been taken out, or at least a couple of them. But all the other characters were great. All of them did really well. The actors were really good, and the legacy characters were really well integrated. I inevitably made the comparison to Jurassic World Dominion, which I believe I put up a review on here after I saw that in theaters. It's shit. If you haven't seen Jurassic World Dominion, at least in my opinion, it's shit. It is poorly written. It's just poorly handled. It looks terrible in terms of the visuals with the CG dinosaurs and all. They look terrible. The original dinosaurs in the first Jurassic Park looked better. And those were practical, though. Those were like animatronics and all, to be fair. But the CG was really bad. But also, it really misused the legacy characters. The only reason Dr. Ian Malcolm was good was because it was Jeff Goldblum, and Jeff Goldblum's pretty much always a star. Like, you could put Jeff Goldblum in anything and he'll be good. Like, you've seen him in, like, those Travelocity commercials or whatever they are, or whatever the ads he does are. And he's great in those. It's Jeff Goldblum. He's going to be great in everything he's in because it's just, he's hilarious. He's amazing. But Sam Neill, and I can never remember the woman's name, the female actress who played Sam Neill's love interest. I can't remember her name. I apologize. But they were really poorly utilized in Jurassic World Dominion. And honestly, they really felt like they were just there for the fan service. Unlike in here, where the legacy characters actually serve a point, a purpose, and have a notable role to play in the climax. They actually feel like they're part of the story, rather than just feeling like, you know, a pointless bit of fan service for the longtime fans of the series. And I think that was intentional because, as we saw, the film very much had a focus on the fact that this was kind of poking fun at the overzealous fans of the original film, who would just constantly bitch and complain about the newer films not having the same spirit and all. And obviously it took it to an extreme, with them becoming killers themselves in order to try and make a better movie in the future. But still, it's just, I think it was intentional. I think it was intentional the way they handled that. Anywho, let's move on. So, sorry if I got distracted there for a second. I got a message. Like I said, I think this was the best in terms of the acting, the story, the way it included the legacy characters and everything else since the first film. I feel, even though I like the sequels, 2, 3, and 4, none of them really, like, hit it into the same level as the first one. And I will say I do think they did get progressively worse. Again, I don't think any of them are bad by any means, but each one is less good than the last. Scream is amazing, phenomenal even. This second one, Scream 2, is still really great. Scream 3, pretty great. Scream 4, just kind of good. But not bad by any means, just kind of good. Not great, but yeah. But this one, again, this one is definitely the best since the first. The writing is solid. The meta of it all is solid with the requel aspect of it, which, yeah, you kind of bring into that idea of the recent Halloween trilogy with Jamie Lee coming back. That was pretty much basically directly mentioned in the film. But also, obviously, Jurassic World can be explained with that as well. And so on and so forth. So, I really like how they integrated that in. The pacing was really good. The kills, even though there wasn't a lot of new creativity with it, like I was hoping for, it was still pretty good. The kills were done well. there were some ones that were just kind of surprising in the way that they were handled. And again, I really liked how things were moved along. And again, there were certain things you could definitely guess at. Like, I'm sure I'm not the only one who guessed that Amber was one of the killers. But then there's other things that, at least for me, were more of a surprise. Like Richie. Though some people probably guessed he was. Some people might have not guessed that Amber was. Also, killing off one of the legacy characters, I think, was smart. I wish it didn't have to be Dewey. Because I really like Dewey. I really like David Arquette. But it made sense. It made sense. It worked. And yeah. I don't blame them for doing it. I'm just sad about it. Yeah, I really like this. I think this was a good start for our Halloween special this year. I think that it was a strong movie to kick things off with. A safe bet for me, though, because again, I really like this franchise, except for season 2 and possibly season 3 of the series. But yeah, I did really enjoy this. I really got a kick out of this one, but I would like to hear your thoughts. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of Scream 5? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? Did you find some issues with it here and there? Let me know. And thank you so much for continuing to tune into the channel and to specifically our 2022 Halloween special. Like I said, this was a very, very good way to kick things off with that. But again, a pretty safe bet for me. It's like I actually ordered it that way specifically because I felt like if I want to start off the Halloween special with something that I pretty much know I'm probably gonna like. What the hell is happening here? My Word document's freaking out for some reason. But yeah, so I wanted to start off with something again that I figured I would like, just to keep it safe, to start off on a good note, and it worked. But next week we go into a movie that, while not part of a legacy like Scream, is a really big movie in the horror sphere lately. And people have been raving about this film. I've heard nothing but good things. And that is The Black Phone. And I'll just tell you now, I'll go into further details next week, but I'll just tell you now, I know pretty much nothing about this movie. I just know Ethan Hawke is in it, and he wears a mask. That's it. So it's going to be fun going into that next week. Either way, like I said, tell me your thoughts on Scream 5 down below. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.